Hey, what's going on, family? You're now tuned in to the internet's number one podcast for the culture, Reading with the Culture. Yeah. Welcome to episode 3 of the podcast.
Don't you mean 4?
Nope, the pilot doesn't count because technically this would be 4. But if you've been here before, then we believe that you either like what you heard, or you like what we're reading, or you might just be one of the haters that's hanging around to watch the show fail. In either event, you already know what we about, and we appreciate your support. So thank you for being here. And if it's your first time rocking with us, then welcome to the internet's number one podcast for the culture, Reading with the Culture. We're an online book club for our culture, but not limited to our culture. We aim to drop content weekly and try to respond to any comments or DMs we receive on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at RWT Culture. That's at RWTCULTURE. And at this moment, we'd actually like to take some time out to acknowledge and answer some comments and questions left by some of our listeners. Now, most of these comments or questions I received in person or over the phone. But please, if you're listening on YouTube or if you are, passing by or scrolling through our social media pages, please don't hesitate to put it there. We don't mind answering on Instagram or answering on Twitter, or as you see, we have responded to whatever's been said on YouTube already. So please don't hesitate to engage with us because this is our book club, not just my book club. So let's get right into it. One of the first questions that I got was, what chapter are you on? Answer: Daily Double. Nah, I'm playing. Rest in peace to Alex Trebek. Jeopardy will never be the same. So we actually don't go chapter by chapter, but we do go in the same order of the book, if that makes sense. So a quick example would basically be if I had 4 episodes on a book, the first episode will probably be about the things that happened at the beginning of the book, and the last episode will probably be about the things that happened at the end of the book. So it does follow, but, not chapter by chapter per se. We also got some feedback and positive comments about our tone. As the one editing this, I am a little anal or a little, I have that perfectionist thing going on with the tone, so I've been working on it. Just trying to make sure that we bring you high quality podcasting every week. So yeah, those are some of the things that, go on behind the scenes, trying to make the podcast better every week. Our last question is actually a question I thought we would have got sooner, which is, why can't I find you on Apple Podcast or Google Podcast or TuneIn, iHeartRadio? The list goes on. So the short answer to that is, money don't grow on trees. It costs money to get on with one of these hosts to put your podcast out there. But starting a podcast, I was looking into that from the beginning. What I generally did want was to get more content together, have more content released, get more people engaged and following with what we're doing here on the podcast before I, try to get it on any of these media host sites. That being said, we are currently in the process of getting approved for our podcast to be on, Apple Podcasts and Stitcher and all these other places that podcasts go, iHeartRadio, the list goes on. I'll have that information and links to those things. I'll try to put those in the description below. So just keep an eye out for that. But that was my attempt at a drum roll. I don't know why I'm doing that when I could find the drum roll.
Can we get a drum roll, please? Thank you.
But yes, we're getting there. We're in the process, and once we are fully on it, I will get that information to you. So thank you guys for pushing me, and for asking, requesting, for actually being interested in seeing us on those podcast networks. So once everything is there, like I said, I'll drop a video or something that lets everybody know. I'll drop it on Twitter. I'll drop it on Facebook, just to let you know that we are officially on Apple Podcasts and other podcasting mediums. So back to this podcast. So we are currently still in our autobiography arc. We're trying to do at least 3 books that are either autobiographies or memoirs. The first of which we have The Art and Science of Respect by Mr. J. Prince. We're at least halfway through or 3/4 through, and we'll be ending that out either with this episode or the next. Our following book is going to be The Mamba Mentality by the late, great Kobe Bryant. Rest in peace to you and Gianna. And for the ladies, we do have Becoming by Michelle Obama. And depending on how we do there, we might shift gears into another category, but that's what we have on the schedule for now. So if you want to read ahead so that you can engage with us on our social media, please feel free to do so. You can comment or DM us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at RWT Culture. Again, that's RWT CULTURE. And let's dive in. In episode 1, we gave James Prince a really great intro. So if you are in the middle, if this is your first episode, I definitely suggest you going back to check that out. In the second episode, we added on to that, and we spoke about ownership for a bit. And towards the end, we were leading into leadership and management. So we'll go into that here. So after trying to earn money the legit way during high school with these 2 part-time jobs, one at the grocery store where one of his coworkers set him up and he got fired from that job. And then from his second job, Mr. Prince, young Prince at the time, he was working in a bank. Let's pick up, I believe, let's pick up on page 60. And what chapter is this for our readers? Blessing in Disguise. So the Blessing in Disguise chapter, page 60, going on. Basically, that just describes how he was working in a bank. And long story short, he was doing good. He was getting promotions. He was learning. He even convinced them to hire his girlfriend as a teller. Like, Prince was in there. They had a baby on the way. He had his eyesight set on becoming the president of the bank. Nothing could go wrong. And then Prince was called into a meeting and told that the entire department was being laid off. And just like that, Prince's time at the bank was over. He was devastated. He was plotting to become the president of the bank, build a fortune, and now he had no job, a pregnant girlfriend, and this was the wake-up call. Prince was done with corporate America, and it was on and popping for the streets. For Prince, at that point, the idea of exchanging his life for minimum wage, only to have it taken away from him at any moment, was absurd. It was slavery, and he wasn't doing it no more. Prince says, working for someone, putting in your time, and building equity within a company is commendable. But if you don't own it, you have no control over how much time you have. And that's facts. So my boy went back to the street and got it the best way he knew how. Turned savage, and by 21, he had $100,000 saved in street money. He bought his mother a 4-bedroom house sitting on an acre of land, and a vacuum cleaner too. You would have caught that one if you've been rocking with us since episode 1. Anyway, Prince had an infatuation with cars. He loved race cars, and he loved expensive cars. He liked nice American muscle cars, and that was just, his thing. He wasn't really into drugs like that. He was just into making his money, paying his bills, supporting his mom, living the life at this point. So with all he's amassed, it was really nothing for him to actually have his own car lot with, Mercedes and Rolls Royces and other high-end vehicles. And in the book, you can see pictures of Prince and just his cars, and also like pictures with him and his family, between pages like 70 going on to at least maybe 95 of pictures of just things that he's done. But it shows the cars that we're talking about here. I bring up the cars and his car lot because that's where we get into management. Long story short, Prince's father was a Rolling Stone. Prince has a lot of brothers and sisters that come in and out of the story. But at this point of the story, we're going to focus on his younger brother, Thelton. But before we do that, let's take a quick break to pay some bills, y'all. Hey brothers and sisters, what's going on? JB Direct here, just checking in and hoping all is well. We here at the Reader with the Culture podcast love to engage our listeners and would love to connect with you. So stop what you're doing right now. Put it down. Stop. Yes, you. And make sure you take this time to give us a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. You can also get alerts when we drop new content if you click this bell after you subscribe. At RWT Culture on all platforms. Peace. And we're back. Thank you. So, Thelton, he met him while he was still in high school. He wasn't a street dude, and Prince wanted to keep it that way. So as they grew up, or as they were growing up, Prince saw that the street was becoming more and more appealing for Thelton. And like he said, he didn't want to see his younger brother getting into that life. So knowing that the only thing that held Thelton's attention was rap, Prince would make sure to use his resources to aid his brother in any way that he could. Thelton was the type of guy that he went out to Oakland, Cali, and tried to pursue the career. It didn't necessarily work out, but sometimes it's not per se how good you are, but how persistent you are. Prince saw this and decided to give his brother an opportunity, and Prince, took part of his car lot that he owned and turned it into a studio. Quick sidebar here. In real estate, Mixed use properties are awesome because you can do something like this. You can run a business out of a part of it and have the other part for residential use. You could even use it for residential income if you rent it out to, somebody else. This sidebar is going to come up a lot in the next couple of chapters. Oh, well, look at you contributing. All right. So Thelton went by the name Sir Rap-A-Lot. So from there, that's how Rap-A-Lot Records were formed in 1986. He got a couple of teenagers that were trying to rap or trying to find their way in the music world and grouped them with Sir Rap-A-Lot. Together, the group formed the Geto Boys. Prince is forming the group just to keep his brother off the street, but he's still in the street and he's still making money that way. But he feels the street closing in on him, and he feels as if death itself is closing in on him. And that's when he's forced to make one of the most pivotal decisions in his life. The days began to draw near. Prince found himself spending a lot more time in the studio, with his proteges. One night, while he was in the studio with the Geto Boys, he heard something special. Something about that recording session just really resonated with him to the point where he thought, these boys could really be something with a lot of work because they were still rough and still finding their way in the music industry that it didn't at that point, 1986, 87, it didn't really exist yet, at least not in the South. But Prince found himself in the closet on his knees with his son Jas in his hand, praying to God, just asking for the opportunity to leave the streets and to go legit, doing his own business with, Geto Boys and finding success that way. And when he left that closet, Prince left a lot of people and circles behind. He parted with the 5-bedroom house. He parted with all the luxury vehicles, and he downgraded to a 1-bedroom apartment and an Astro van. At this point, he was just focused on one goal: to make Rap-A-Lot Records a success, which was honestly going to take a lot of work. But I kid you not, the next couple of events that happened for Rap-A-Lot Records happened just like out of the Bible, where in Genesis 22, Abraham, in obedience, is about to sacrifice his son Isaac when, out of nowhere, there's a ram caught in the thicket. That is the actual sacrifice that was placed there by God for Abraham to use. One of the Bible's many lessons that highlights how God will provide. And especially in this case that we're talking about for Rap-A-Lot Records, he certainly did. Following this, the Geto Boys released their first single, Car Freak. Immediately, Car Freak did two things for the Geto Boys. One, it got them their first nationwide distribution deal, which Prince used the proceeds from that to put right back into the label. And the other thing that it did was attract a DJ out of Trenton called DJ Ready Red, who came down to Prince's car lot from Jersey and just pretty much offered himself up for a job to be their producer. He really believed in the movement and wanted to be a part of it from the very beginning. And there goes the providence of God. And because he had a mixed-use property, Prince was able to get him set up upstairs above the studio, which made everything flow just so much easier. So having an in-house DJ made things a lot easier at Rap-A-Lot Records, but it also exposed some of the issues that they were having. Prince's younger brother, Thelton, started to self-destruct. He was missing recording sessions, rehearsals, meetings. He'd gotten into drugs and was just overall being distracted from the original deal that him and Prince had made. at this point, Prince had to make a tough decision that any manager would have had to make. And unfortunately, Felton had to be dropped from the label. Now, there's a lot more that could be said about management and this book. But as I close, I just want to leave you guys with a quote from Peter Drucker. Management is doing things right. Leadership is doing the right things. I'm going to let that marinate. And if you're still here at this time, we thank you definitely for listening to the program. We ask that you like, share, and subscribe on all platforms at RWT Culture. That's at RWT CULTURE. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and pretty soon you'll see us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and a whole bunch more. So please stay tuned. And last but not least, I'm just here to remind you that you can pick your friends, you can pick your nose, but ain't nothing wrong with picking up a good book every now and again. Peace, love, and guidance, family.
The Reading with the Culture podcast is an independent podcast sponsored by no one yet, but we will be.